Hi everyone, welcome to the In Frame podcast. I'm Luke, this is Pip, and today we have
Daniel Alexander. Good morning and nice to be with you guys.
Nice to be you too, Daniel. How have you been?
Really good, considering the obvious conditions that we're all in. But yeah. Nice early start and really looking forward to speaking to you guys.
Amazing, glad to have you here. Before we begin, remember to subscribe and ring that bell on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We'll be posting more content with Daniel from clips from this podcast, as well as a whole bunch of other fun little videos coming out soon. It's brilliant, and let's get into it.
Great. Hey, so Daniel, it's fantastic that you've been able to join us. Thank you so much. I mean, the kind of the aim of these podcasts in many ways is to try and give some insights to, you know, young emerging filmmakers about how people have got on with stuff. So the first question to you is, you know, how did you get into it? You know, what were the kind of the trigger points for you to kind of enable yourself to kind of develop yourself as a filmmaker when you first got going?
Okay, that's always a tricky question because it's so far back, and I think the landscape of how people get into video now is so different to how it started for me. But for me, it was through youth work, and it was totally by accident. So I probably started when I was about 20, 21. Previous to that, I had no experience with film or video cameras or anything to that degree at all. But I did a lot of youth work, and even though I was young myself at the time, I was very kind of engaged in social activities and trying to work with people from like really kind of disengaged backgrounds. Mm-hmm. So I had a video camera as I think it was a birthday present or a Christmas present, one of the two, and realized that it was really just a natural fit. Like, I just loved capturing things. So we used it as part of a youth project that I was leading at the time. So we decided, you know what, we're going to make a music video. No idea how to make a music video. At that time, there was not necessarily YouTube the way it is now, where you can go online and learn everything and, you know, almost Matrix style upload information into your site, you know how to operate something. It was a case of let's just try. So we filmed a music video for about 15 young people. It turned out all right. I was surprised myself. They were surprised. It got a lot of circulation around other youth projects. And then I think the power, though, was from the young people themselves, because just like now, they were sharing it amongst themselves. So it was kind of like, hey, can you do us a music video? Can you do us a music video? And then that eventually led to me trying to create a platform. And I was like, do you know what? This is a good idea. I'm going to try and create music videos for young people so they've got a way to express themselves. And at the time, I was really trying to make sure that, you know, kids have got alternative options of being out on the streets and getting involved in trouble, blah, 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 blah. So that's what I was doing. I was shooting a ton of music videos, which were all a bit crappy, to be fair, looking back. But what happened from that point is independent artists, they saw what was happening and they contacted me and says, hey, listen, will you shoot us a music video? Because in them days, try not to really give away my age, but in them days, the music video was rare. It's not like how everyone's got, you know, cameras on their phones now or access to that kind of technology. It was not the case. I mean, phones, it was the days of, I don't know if you remember the Nokia 3310s. Like, I don't even remember if there was videos on those phones.
No, I don't think so, no.
They were terrible if they were.
Exactly. So I got my first gig shooting an independent artist. And at the time, I didn't know they had a following. So we shot the video and it went viral. It was uploaded to a platform in America. It was all over here. It ended up on MTV. And that just kind of took off then. It was a case of, wow, who's shooting these music videos for prices that everyone can afford? Because it was very much a case of, if you want a music video, it's going to cost X, Y, and Z. But little old me, I didn't know what I was doing. It was just like, yeah, I'll do it for, you know, a few pennies. So then the artists started coming in. Luckily, just because of the kind of person I am, I studied the craft, really dedicated myself to it as well. Just learned as much as I could with the limited resources from Google or wherever I could find books, etc. And it just took off. Almost every video that I did ended up on TV. It was so easy to get onto, much easier to get onto platforms like MTV. Them days it was the Box music channel as well. So it was like tons and tons and tons of music videos just coming out one after the other. So from an outside in, people were looking at me as a real director. And then it just took off. And then once I really got into the flow of things and being comfortable making music videos, naturally progressed to films. Like, okay, I want to make a short film now. A lot of artists are talking about, encouraging me to kind of go down that route as well. And that's when I made my very first short film, which was called Sacrilege. That, again, it was featured on BBC Two on a program. It was featured on the news. It won several awards. Don't look for it. It's not a good film, but at the time, it was something that was new and innovative, and people just hooked on. And that's literally the birth of my career. And I feel like, as much as I did study and I put the hard work in, I was lucky to be in a time where the market wasn't as saturated as it is now.
Yeah, that's really interesting comments there. So at what point for you, I mean, you kind of mentioned it there, maybe it was the short film, but I think your story is similar to some where, they haven't gone down the traditional route. They found themselves in an opportunistic moment.
Yeah.
Me was very similar, came out of my youth work. So it's very sort of similar kind of idea there. But talk to me a little bit about where was the tipping point for you that this was not just something on the side that was kind of just happening around the youth work or whatever else you were doing to kind of earn a living? Where was that tipping point where this became what you were actually going to do and it was the thing that was going to pay the bills?
That question as well, like every time I think about the answer to that question, it makes me smile, because it's really hard to kind of define the exact moment. But when you look back, you can see the period where you can recognize, okay, this is no longer just a hobby. I'm reliant on this to pay my bills. And that happened for me. In fact, if I had to pick a specific moment, I remember sitting in a car. I was with one of my good friends at the time. And I was getting emails through on a phone or a laptop or something I was hooking up. And at that time, I still considered myself to just be a hobbyist. But my friend looked at me and he just says, I can't believe it. I was like, what? And he's like, you're actually running a business. And I was looking down, I was like, yeah, look, I've got all of these video requests. I've got another column over here of things that I'm done, and I'm waiting for payments and invoices and stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is crazy. And that's when things started to change for me, and I started to kind of really address it as a business. And then living by myself as well. Circumstances had it that I was living alone. So I was out of the job that I had a full-time job working in a supermarket. It was like my first ever job. And I lost that. And now I had no income. This literally became my only source of income. And I think that is literally the tipping point. If that didn't happen, if I stayed in my full-time job, I probably wouldn't be where I am now or as far along as I am now. It was the pressure. It was the fact that I had no other option. Like, I've got bills to pay. I've got rent to pay. I have to make an income. And I love doing this. And I'm a bit stubborn as well. And despite close friends and some family saying, you need to go and get a real job, or maybe go to university to do it. And I was just like, no, I can make it happen. There's a way. So I just stuck to it. It was super hard. Some months I barely scraped through. But that pressure, I've got a personal belief as well. Until you put yourself into a situation where you have no other option, it's very rare that you'll find out who you really are and what you're really capable of. Because once I was in that position where it was like, if I don't get X amount of money at the end of the month, I've got nowhere to live. That made me reach out and develop new contacts and work to a rate that certain people thought I was a robot. It was like, how are you doing this much? And it was like, I have to. And then it became normal. And then that work ethic has followed me to this day. Everyone that knows me, they're just like, don't you ever sleep? Don't you ever rest? You work too much. But it's a natural flow for me. So for me, that was a tipping point, at the point where I was pressured and I had to. And going to university, or at the time there was a few film schools, but they were expensive. I didn't have that money. And you know what I mean? So it's a case of, I can't afford film school. So film school for me is going to have to be Google and taking my camera outside and figuring it out myself. So if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. If it goes right, it goes right. But ultimately, I'm gonna learn a lesson. And that was it.
That's brilliant. That's really great. I mean, that's the risk-taking element, I think, of filmmaking is something that, we need to explore a little bit more, because it is something I think sometimes that's what it takes, is those moments to go, just take that leap of faith, really. Hey, Luke, over to you. You got a question?
I do, yeah. So skip forwards a few years. the Commonwealth Games says they're coming to Birmingham, and you are put in charge of creating the film for it to announce it. And now looking back, that's been seen by over 1 billion people. And what was the experience making that video, and how was that experience for you?
That was surreal. That was one of those projects where anyone in the filmmaking world will be familiar with applying for bids and tenders or opportunities where in the back of your head you're thinking, I'm not really going to get this. Like there's 1,000,001 people in a better situated or better positioned to handle this. So when I went for it, and I got the call to say, yeah, you're the man. You've got to make it happen. That was kind of like, all right, it's game time. It's the biggest thing that I've ever done, and done up to this date as well. But at the same time, it was exciting. It's just that pressure. It's it was intro with, oh, this is going to be seen by over 1 billion people. It's going to be played live from BBC, Gold Coast, Australia, etc., etc. So that pressure was there, but I've kind of been able to kind of disassociate the bigger worlds of that kind of external pressure, because a lot of the work that I do and a lot of just how I operate in life is very much a case of, at the end of the day, I'll just turn off my phone. I'll just turn off my computer and then it disappears. So for me, as much as I'm passionate and I love things, everything is still about work. So you switch on and then you switch off. So as soon as it was as a point of saying, okay, you've got to do this, it was unreal. It's the biggest organizing that I've had to do on a project. It was a fact of, you have to do something that's a bit risky as well, because traditionally those films have been very glossy, and they want to show the upper living style of a city that we're from, and make everything very picturesque. But the brief for the film that we were making was, scrap that. We want to make this very young. We want to make this. We want to play off the fact that this is one of the youngest, most diverse cities in Europe, and we want to break the mold, and we want to make it quirky and a little bit edgy and a bit risky. And then when you're looking into it, you're like, okay, that's a bit of a risk, because people are expecting one thing, and when they see another thing, you have to realize that part of a filmmaker, you're gonna have to take the brunt of that, because they're not going to know what the brief is. They're just going to be like, this is different to the Birmingham that I'd want to see on screen. But it's going out to 1 billion people, so you're gonna have people that love it, and you're gonna have people that are going to be like, no, I wish we could see Birmingham in a different way. But I think what that film has actually done is it's opened up such a massive array of opportunities for the people that are involved. People have since, from the Commonwealth film that we've done, have tried to replicate that video on so many different independent platforms, and it's almost become a trend of, anytime we're trying to do something young and diverse in the city, it's kind of like, how can we do something like that, which is really, really nice, and it's a nice kind of legacy that it's left. But yeah, in regard to the project, that it opened a lot of doors. I made sure that I employed as many emerging filmmakers as I could behind the camera as well. So you've got loads of people now that are going to have to do amazing things in TV and film, just through the contacts of being involved in the projects. And yeah, it really has opened a lot of doors. And I think a testament, especially to maybe some of the audience that are watching this, in regards to emerging filmmakers themselves, is just a reminder that as long as you stay working, as long as you stay visible, and I think visibility is a massive thing that we'll probably talk about later anyway, but as long as you stay working and stay visible and you stick to your craft, you'll never know what opportunities come your way, even opportunities that may seem larger than life or larger than you at the time. Do you know what I mean? So I just think it's very important to make sure that if you love something and it is definitely going to be your craft, you just stick to it, and the opportunities will come, just like with the Commonwealth Games. And I'm hoping that after lockdown, there's another array of opportunities that come and scare me a little bit more again.
Incredible. Fantastic.
So Daniel, one of the things that, I really loved what you did with the Commonwealth Games film. It was so young, it was so diverse. For me, it did represent the city that at that time I was still living in. Obviously I've moved since then, but I've been in Birmingham for 30 years. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it was very risky, some of the stuff you tried to do, particularly with the kind of the mixture of the stuff that had been shot and edited, but then actually mixed in with stuff that was happening live, at the time, was really exceptional. But it was also just fantastic to see so many young people from diverse ethnic backgrounds that were involved in it as well. And I know, obviously you're a black filmmaker in your own right, but you're passionate about other people discovering opportunities and ways to develop their talent and stuff. So tell us a bit about this amazing project Back In that you've been involved in for a few years.
Yeah, so Back In is I'm really passionate about that project. So Back In is I was about to say 6 month, it's now expanded to 9-month film development program that is produced by Punch Records and managed by myself. So in collaboration, we've developed this program that is serving an issue of diversity in the filmmaking community. So it's kind of a response to the less than 3%. I think the official figures are from BFI, less than 3% of the film industry around the world is made up by BAME, by people of colour making film. And even that figure isn't people in lead roles, it's just involvement. So technically on a world scale, black filmmakers are pretty much invisible. So we know that we can't solve the whole problem, but we're very much passionate in trying to do our little bit. And for me as well, going back to my early career, looking up, representation was a big thing. Representation is a reason why I almost kind of stopped doing what I was doing. Luckily, I never. But not having somebody to look up to who looks like you has such a massive impact on moving forward. Sometimes you only need to see one person that looks or is similar to a place where you've come from, and internally it's just like, oh yeah, it is possible. Or I feel comfortable and I don't feel silly moving in that direction. So Back In is not only designed to make sure that people of colour are equipped with the skills and the opportunities to get into the film industry, but also so we create this kind of community, this ecosystem where people can look up and be like, it's possible. I can see somebody that looks like me, somebody that may not come from a traditional film school background, or they've got relatives in film, or have received funding in the past, blah, blah, blah. But it's possible, and there's a support mechanism in place that is going to champion, us that are not necessarily represented and counted for in the industry. And it's going to help move us forward. And the process and the journey has been amazing. I mean, we've got partnership with BFI, who have been amazing, and they get involved so much in offering support and advice, and they help with the masterclass sessions as well. Yourself, Pip, you've offered so much advice, and people over the 3 years, we're about to launch the 4th year now, over the 3 years that we've been running it, are still talking about the very kind of real industry support that they've had from you as well. And that's what we're really focused on in Back In, is we don't want to do a checkbox exercise where it's, oh, you get a certificate at the end, or we send you along and, oh, now you're ready for the industry. It's very much a case of we try to put them in front of people in the industry who will give them real answers and real guidance, and we get them on real sets, and we commission them. So they've got money to go out there and make films. And then when those films are made, we do a celebration at the end where we do a cinema screening. So we'll hire out a cinema, we'll invite down, press. Well, we have press throughout anyway, so there's always magazines and newspaper reports. We have a real kind of showcase at the end, and have all of the people that have been involved to come and get involved and help move them along in their journey. And it's been amazing. I know I'm rambling on a little bit about it. I'm just so passionate about it. But the success stories has been crazy. We've got people that are now working with the BBC. We've got a person that is now a producer for various different companies, some really big companies. Somebody from the first cohort, I think you worked with her as well, who recently did a spot with Lenny Henry that was on BBC. Somebody had a feature film, which was, they were involved in a feature film that had cinematic distribution. One person is now making viral videos all over the world. Like, it's crazy that it's actually, it worked. It's not a case of, oh, we've done it, and now they're just in a little silo doing films in their room. They're actually in the industry, working in the industry, and I'm so super proud of it.
Fantastic.
Incredible.
It's really, really great. Yeah, all the best for that next cohort. That sounds super, super exciting, and very much where we're coming from too as OSBD. That's our real passion, is to how can we be involved, using some of our experience down the years, to help that kind of next wave of emerging filmmakers you know, find their place, you know, in what they want to do. So that's just, yeah, absolutely awesome. Luke, I think you've got the last question.
I do. I've got a second question that I'm throwing in as well.
Ooh,
You mentioned
okay.
freestyling it, you know. You mentioned earlier about like with the Commonwealth Games, kind of turning off your phone and separating out. And you mentioned with your work ethic of kind of going, you have to make films, you have to do it because you wouldn't be able to pay the bills otherwise. How do you manage a work-life balance with what you do between working and then stopping working and having a bit of time for family and friends and so on and so forth?
The real answer is getting told off at home.
Time
to turn the phone off. But I mean, realistically, it's out of everything, that's probably been the most difficult thing. It's something that I've had to learn over a long time, in the sense of having that separation is critical to making sure that you still are passionate and still falling in love with the art as well. Because once you're at home and you're trying to spend time with the family, but your phone's still going off, you're still kind of, you're subconsciously engaged, or you're not at home, you're not present, and that can affect your home life. And it has to a degree. So I've had to really kind of be conscious of that. But the turning point for me was when I had children. So I was in the middle of a project which is similar to Backing, actually. It's called Filmage, and it was something that I set up to help emerging filmmakers have access to equipment to make films. And we were just about to start. We was in the middle of making the very first film for the project, and then my girlfriend, who was pregnant at the time, I remember getting home and she was like, yeah, my belly hurts. And I was like, yeah, but you're not due for another 3.5 months. And she was like, yeah, but it really hurts. And I was like, okay, cool, let's just go to the hospital. And then at that point, I was just like, yeah, the babies are coming. I say babies because they're twin girls. So yeah, it was like 26 weeks, 3.5 months early. It was kind of like, what? This is crazy. I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. So the whole world had to stop for me. The kids had to stay in hospital in intensive care for 3.5 months, as they should have been in the belly. Because of the level of care they needed, they had to stay in Coventry. And because we're not residents of Coventry, that all the system and politics, we weren't allowed to stay over very often. So we had to travel to Coventry every single day. So work was kind of just like out of the window, although I still managed to work at the same time because bills had to be paid. So that taught me a very hard lesson of I've got to separate life from work. There's certain things that take priority. And I mean, luckily, the kids are fine now. They're about to turn 4 in a few weeks. Brilliant. Absolute handful. You would have never known that they were so prem. But yeah, that was a real tough lesson. So it kind of took that kind of shock to the system to realize that you've got no choice to kind of separate work from your home life. And I think that's kind of like a reoccurring theme with me. I need to be pushed to an extreme before I start taking action on things that may need to be done.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been an incredible time having you on the podcast. And I remember the first time I met you was not this last year, but the year before, was BFI Film Academy. And I think having you there really changed the atmosphere of that course for that year. And it really, really brought things to it. And so it's just great chatting to you again. And
likewise, thank you, Luke. Really appreciate it.
No worries. And so final question before we start wrapping up is, what are your next steps? What are you up to now? And going forwards, past quarantine into the future?
So I feel like at the moment it's probably the most exciting time for me, pre-quarantine. So we've got a few projects that we're pitching. So we've got the biggest one, I can't really say too much about, is something that we're pitching in the hope of being picked up by a television network. That's going to take the majority of the attention once we get out of quarantine, hopefully this year. Other than that, though, being locked down, I'd say the one good thing that's come out of that in regards to work is I've developed another platform called the Midlands Film Archive. And that has literally been launched in the last week. So what that is an answer to a lot of conversations that I've had with filmmakers in the region for like ever, where it's like, where can we see more films from, local filmmakers? And then the other thing was, I spent 6 months doing this film. I put it online. Everyone loved it for 2 days. and now it's disappeared and it's buried because something else has come, and because they've not got a huge following, no one knows where to find it, and it's hard to keep promoting your own film all the time without sounding a little bit narcissistic sometimes. So what the platform is designed to do is create a permanent home for films made in the Midlands or by Midlands based filmmakers. So when people want to know what's going on in the region, they can go to the Midlands Film Archive, midlandsfilmarchive.com, little plug. And they can go there and they can see the best of the films that are being made in the region, and connect with people, and hopefully new relationships can develop, and people can celebrate and see the stuff that is happening in the Midlands.
That's absolutely, that's brilliant. I mean, we've uploaded a few of our films, Daniel, so that's been fantastic. And you're absolutely right. It's I mean, gosh, I was having that conversation forever. We were talking yesterday, weren't we, on the phone about some of the politics of where, but it's just brilliant that you've just got that off the ground. And I know there's a lot of filmmakers are going to be so chuffed that there's, somewhere like that where their films can be seen. So that's, absolutely brilliant that you're doing that. And I'm sure, I'm very hopeful a lot of people that will get involved in as well will discover that's a place to go and put their films on. So it's absolutely brilliant.
I appreciate it. The response has been crazy. Like I need to expand the team because it's just crazy. Within the past 3 days or so, we're at, I think it's 55 new submissions, bearing in mind we've already got like 30-40 films that are currently on the website as well. So it's been a good response, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Incredible. Where can people find you if they want to follow you more and follow what you're doing?
So where am I most active? I'd probably say on Instagram it's Daniel Alexander Films. My website is probably got a link to everything, which is danielalexanderfilms.com. That should have a link to everything on there. So
fantastic. And so thank you very much for joining us, Daniel.
It's been good.
It's been great fun. And
thank you so much.
And we'll see you all next week on the In the Frame podcast. And so see you next time. Bye-bye.
Great. Bye now. Bye.